Vault of the Archangel too. So plenty of white cards, honestly.
So it looks a lot like these are cards I would expect to see in black-white tokens, except he's doing a zombies creature base with it.
Yeah, he's got the Grave Crawlers, he's got your Diagraph Ghouls, of course he's got 4 copies of Geralt's Messenger. You know, he doesn't have a lot more zombies than that, but you know, it's easy to call this deck black-white zombies. It almost feels like just a good, like a black-white good card deck.
Right.
That has an aggressive shell built around it. I mean, there's even 2 copies of Liliana the Veil thrown in here as well, as that's just a good black card.
All right, so on the other side we have Thos Fisher. He's playing red-green aggro, very similar to the decks we saw in the top 4. He has chosen to play Firefist Striker over Lightning Mauler, so he's on that plan, and has a little bit of spice in his list. Instead of the 4th Pillar and 4th Searing Spear, he's cut each of those down to 3 to add a Pyrewild Shaman and an Archwing Dragon.
Archwing Dragon I've tried before. I played it at Grand Prix San Antonio last year. I think that was in November. And it's like really good against like your Sphinx's Revelations deck. Very good as a stretch. I'd say it's pretty good against those decks because there were no other options, and it gave you like this recursive 4 points of damage. If I had access to a card like Pyrewild Shaman, then I would have certainly played that, as it's just a better piece of recursive damage.
Right. So Archwing Dragon, because of how it plays, is usually pretty good against decks that are overloaded on sorcery speed removal. The idea is that it's very hard for them to deal with it. Because of how the format is right now, I'm not sure how many decks are actually trying, are removal heavy decks.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Ken Yeo's deck again. He won with Blue White Red this morning. That was super removal heavy, but I think that's I don't think that's a normal thing that happens all the time. You know, he's got a light bit of removal, he's got a ton of removal, not a light amount like we normally see.
Well, I do want to talk about those Pyrewild Shaman. That was a card, there was mono red in block, and actually even the mono red decks in block were not on 4 Pyrewild Shamans. They were on maybe 1 or 2. But do we like it more in standard right now?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, between the slots with mono red is a deck that's so tight on space. Like, you can't really make a lot of innovations. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see 4 Pyrewild Shamans. But is it like a good one of? I feel like it is. Like, in the same vein that Gorkland Rampager is like a good 1 or 2 of in a Naya Blitz strategy. I feel like Pyrewild Shaman's a nice 1 of or 2 of in a mono red deck.
Right, and we do think it's worse than Gorkland Rampager, seeing as Thos is playing 4 Rampagers.
Yeah, there's not many cards that are better than Gorkland Rampager. Pyrewild Shaman is kind of unique in what it does, but it's nowhere near the power level of Gorkland Rampager, as Thos Fisher is going to start off this game with a Stomping Ground and a Stromkirk Noble.
Yeah, Thos was on 6 cards for this game, so that will probably lower his ability to reload for a second attack here. Granted, because of black-white zombies, a lot of its creatures come into play tapped and can't block. There should be a window in these first couple turns where Thos could deal a lot of damage.
And Stromkirk Noble is coming in. Gravecrawler, that cannot block. That's something that's not going to happen, my friend. Or that would be one of the best 1-drops ever printed. Noble's going to get him a point of damage. That's going to tick up to become a 2/2. And one of the things about the red-green aggro deck and red aggro decks in general, Matthias, is when they showed up last year, the reason that they actually showed up, 1 is because they were a budget option, but 2 is because they destroyed zombie decks.
Right.
Because, as you said, Zombies is a deck that cannot block and it does not play defense very well. Because we're going to see a Rakdos Cackler here from Thos, and it is going to be unleashed, so it's going to be a 2/2 as well.
Right. I mean, between these 2 aggro decks, we assume red-green is the faster of the 2.
Yes.
Is the impression I get. Maybe not this game, as Thos only has the Stomping Ground as his land.
Yeah. That Gravecrawler's got no business hanging out on defense, as here is an isolated Chapel for Zach.
Now, one thing that I do like about the Black-White Zombies deck is because of Cartel Aristocrat, it has ways to, do cheaty things with Gravecrawler. You can create this excellent blocker, for example. Maybe not a blocker for Stromkirk Noble, but...
All right, so here is Cartel Aristocrat, and it is at the ready to block something, and you can sacrifice Gravecrawler and then bring it back later. So it actually is nice to have a sacrifice outlet that does come back for Cartel Aristocrat.
I think if he gets the option, he will block and give protection and to eat the Rakdos Cackler. Right now, despite the fact that he doesn't have a way to rebuy Gravecrawler, Zach has to think he's the defensive deck. He's the guy with lands. If he can stop that initial assault from Thos, he should be just fine in this game.
Yeah. So here comes Stromkirk Noble, and Cartel Aristocrat's making his move.
I'm assuming that's another one of those blocks that he actually can't make. Okay, the judge informing him that actually it's a human, so that block's not allowed.
So Noble's going to tick up to a 3/3. And now Thos does have his second land. And so now here is a Burning Tree Emissary. There's your trigger. There's your Firefish Striker. And that's a passing of the turn.
And now this is a scary place for Zach, because the Black-White Zombies deck does not actually play any board sweepers.
Yep.
His ways to kind of pull ahead in the late game are, he has an Obsidat. He also has a Vault of the Archangel. I think if he ever gets to the point where he can activate a Vault, he probably can't lose the game.
Yeah, I mean, if he's ever to get to that point, getting there
is a whole nother story. I mean,
yeah.
If he can make it stay alive that long,
yeah.
That's one of the ways. The question is, because he can't sweep Thos' board, he has to make some sort of trumping play to win. Yeah. If you actually give an aggro deck enough time, like Thos will just continue to make 2-drops and more Fire Fist Strikers, or like his Alpha Strike will continue to get more scary.
Yeah. And that's the difficulty here with a zombie strategy in general. Is again, it's a deck that just does not play defense very well. So as a result, when you're underneath this level of pressure, you're trying to think to yourself, all right, what do I do to get myself out of this? And I mean, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, the problem is you have cards like Geralf's Messenger, that aren't even, they don't even come into play untapped.
Yeah. So here's a Godless Shrine that is going to come into play tapped.
Right, he leaves up mana for another Aristocrat, a possible Orzhov Charm, which is a removal spell, though not really one that he would be too excited about.
Yeah, it's a costly one. This Gravecrawler is going to come across here, and Zach is going to pass the turn back. So Thos is going to untap. He's going to draw. See what he finds for the turn. You see a Searing Spear hanging out there, among other things.
He found a third land, and at this point, Thos probably doesn't need any more lands for his deck to operate. He does play 4 Hell Riders and an Archwing Dragon and 4 Gorklans. So I suppose a 4th land he likes. A 5th one at that point is, that would be too many.
Yeah, the goal is to stop at 4. So now here come the creatures, with the idea being I don't want to lose my Firefish Striker to your Cartel Aristocrats, sacrificing
Gravecrawler. Right.
So what are we going to see here? We are going to see Orzhov Charm.
That's going to happen, I imagine, on Stromkirk Noble.
But we will see here. It is going to be the Noble. So 3 damage is going to be taken there from Keathley. Going to move down to 14, as you do see Orzhov Charm on the screen. Whole lot of text. So much text, there's no room for flavor text.
Yeah, I mean, typically the third ability is pretty much never used. It's almost always the Vendetta ability. Destroys a creature and you lose life equal to its toughness. The reason people still like it is because of the first ability. It gives it some extra versatility. You can save your own creatures with it.
Yeah. So now Cartel Aristocrat does get to block. It's going to get protection from red from the sacrificing of Gravecrawler. Burning Emissary is going to bite the dust here. And so now we're going to see a mountain and just going to pass the turn back.
Yeah, now the Firefist Striker does not have Battalion. So this is a pretty stable board for Zach.
Now you see an Orzhov Guildgate come into play. There are 4 copies of those in Keathley's deck. And let's see what Keathley's going to be able to cobble together on this turn. Is it Geralf's Messenger time? Maybe a Frontline Medic? Maybe even a Lingering Souls? And it is going to be Lingering Souls, so 2 Spirit Tokens are going to come into play here.
I remember Keathley's really just buying time until he reaches his finishers. His finishers in this matchup being the Vault of the Archangel or one of the 2 Obsidat Ghost Councils that he plays.
I'm not sure Archangel does a nice job of stabilizing things as well. So now here comes the Cartel Aristocrats. So getting a little aggressive there. But I suppose Lingering Souls is at the ready to, either block the Firefish Striker by itself or double block the Rakdos Cackler.
Alright, so Thos here drawing in, he has his 4th land, so now presumably all the cards in his deck are activated.
Yeah.
He does have a Searing Spear in his hand, but he has a 3rd card that's unknown right now. And we will see his set of plays. Thos has taken a fair amount of damage. He's taken, actually, just a fair amount of damage this game between his own Stomping Ground and the couple Gravecrawler hits he took. He's actually hardly winning the race.
Yeah, you would think that he wouldn't be at 12 given, how the opening turns of the game went, but wildly different as now he's going to be attacking with his Rakdos Cackler.
And if you're Keathley, you have 2 options. You can either just continue to trade here because you have presumably more cards, you have a flashback on Lingering Souls, or you can just try to race. Keathley's going to go with the actual straight race strategy.
He takes 2 from the Rakdos Cackler, and of course racing against the red deck is a little bit dangerous because they do have reach in the form of Pillar of Flame and Searing Spear. Searing Spear we already know is in Thos' hand as well as Hell Rider, so the damage can add up very quickly. Yeah,
I think it comes down to whether or not Keathley feels that he has a great late game in his own hand. What this tells me is, he probably just has a lot more 2-drops or a lot more like quick aggressive things and nothing that really closes the game out, so he feels that racing is now the best option.
So he's going to continue the race, coming across with Cartel Aristocrat and 2 Spirit tokens. I'm interested to see what the follow-up is going to be this turn.
Well, yeah, he didn't flash back the Lingering Souls pre-combat. What that tells me is that he's going to tap out all his mana for some sort of threat. You normally would want to flash it back pre-combat in case you needed to give Cartel Aristocrat protection. Then passing the turn, I mean, I think the clear signal here is Restoration Angel.
Yeah. This feels like a Restoration Angel if I've ever seen one before.
You know, Thos has to suspect that. It's very... I mean, the fact there's Lingering Souls in the graveyard and 4 untapped lands is quite suspicious here.
Yeah. I'm with you. If you're going to put them on anything in this situation, and you're familiar with Standard even a little bit, it's got to be Restoration Angel. And I think, you're in the situation where if you're wrong, you're probably okay. Like, if you're putting on Restoration Angel and you're wrong, you're probably okay with that. But if you're right, it's like a disaster. And now we're going to see Firefish Striker and Rakdos Cackler come in. Here's Restoration Angel. Looks like it's going to blink Cartel Aristocrat. And now we're probably going to see some blocking here.
Right, so, I mean, Thos didn't commit the Hell Rider to the board, presumably to play around the Angel. I think the problem is that this play, like, is equally devastating. Like, if he has the Angel, I'm not sure that Thos has many good plays at all.
Yeah.
So it might be one of those situations where you're just supposed to kind of run headlong into the Angel and hope he doesn't have it.
Yep. But again, as you astutely pointed out, like, if he didn't have Angel, he would have flashback Lingering Souls. So it's like 100% confirmation.
Yeah, I mean, he either has Angel or he has Orzhov Charm, Tragic Slip, or some double kill spell.
Yep.
And if that's what he has, you're in a pretty bad spot anyway.
It's all devastating.
Yeah.
So once the dust settles here, I think we're going to see Thos lose some things. Yeah.
He's
going to lose
he has
two
the
things.
option to Searing Spear the Angel to finish it off. Whether or not he chooses to do that, we'll see. He's going to make Burning Emissary into Searing Spear for the Angel. And then hold the Hell Rider that's still in his hand.
So Keathley's going to untap. He's going to draw. And he has been aggressive the entire game, so I would be very surprised if we don't see him continue to attack here.
Right, I mean, just the Lingering Souls in his graveyard is enough to stop the Hell Rider, so, I mean, right now the board is better than what's in Thos' hand.
Yeah.
So he's playing with a lot of security on his side.
So attack for 3, he's going to put Fisher down to 5. Let's see what we're going to see post-combat. We're going to see a flashback of Lingering Souls.
All right.
So that's step 1.
Interesting that if he was going to make that play, you think once again that he'd want to make that play pre-combat in case Thos decided to block Cartel Aristocrat to the Emissary. You'd rather, still have the damage from your flyer.
And he's just going to pass the turn back here. So Fisher going to untap. He's going to draw a card. He finds a mystery.
Yeah, his hidden card is Hell Rider. We know that. We know a Hell Rider. We don't know the current draw.
Okay.
In this is one of the situations why we were talking yesterday about the differences between Naya Blitz and Red-Green Aggro. One of the reasons we said we liked Red-Green Aggro was that it had the ability to go running Hell Riders and steal games that should otherwise not win.
Yep.
If he has a Hell Rider and his draw was Hell Rider, he does have an out here.
All right, so we're going to see, looks like we're going to see a chump block here. Yep, and that's what we do see.
So Keathley's trying to not win this next turn. He's content winning over the course of 2 turns.
He's just playing it very, very safe. He doesn't want to take any extra damage, is what it looks like to me. As Keathley's going to draw a card.
And interesting that Thos opted not to play the Hell Rider. He seems to he's valuing the surprise factor quite a lot in the card. Most of the removal that Black-White plays is instant speed removal, so actually whether or not, running it out right now isn't particularly the surprise factor doesn't count for that much.
So after an attack for 4, Dross Messenger is going to finish things up with his come into the battlefield trigger, 2 life loss. Thos is at 1. That's going to be game for this match.
Keathley had the option to even deal 2 more due to the sacrifice effect. So, but why we saw the chump block there is he had more than enough damage in play to ensure the kill.
So Zach Keathley is going to win game number 1 here over Thos Fisher. Black-White Zombies versus Red-Green Aggro. You've got the Red-Green Aggro sideboard in front of you. Let's talk about it.
All right, well, I mean, I think this is, despite how that game played out, this is a matchup that Thos has to feel pretty good about. He does have 2 Electrickery in his deck, which is pretty good. I mean, it's okay against Gravecrawlers. Not that you actually care about Gravecrawlers as a Red-Green Aggro deck. It's excellent against Lingering Souls, and he saw a pair of Lingering Souls that game. Other than that, he The rest of the things in the sideboard are not too relevant. He has one Legion Loyalist that I think we'll probably see. The first strike that it gives your team is really relevant, as well as the tokens not being able to block aspect. So I would expect him to board that in. The other cards, I'm not a huge fan of. He has a Pillar of Flame. He could choose to do that. It may be a better card than Searing Spear here. But the other cards, which are Skullcrack, Volcanic Strength, Domery Rod, I don't really see any of those getting used.
Sure. I think I'm with you on that one as we take a look over here at Keathley's sideboard. 1 Devour Flesh, a High Priest of Penance, 3 Tragic Slip, 3 Vile Rebirth, 4 Appetite for Brains, 1 Oblivion Ring, and 2 Duress. So it looks like, you know, he looks like he's actually pretty good against like these Sphinx Revelation decks that we keep talking about that aren't showing up in mass, but his aggro matchup doesn't seem the best. I think we're going to see the High Priest, we'll probably see the Devour Flesh, and then some number of Tragic Slips. I'm not sure if we're going to see all 3 or not.
Yeah, they require a little bit of work to become actual removal spells against the red-green aggro deck. That said, it is a spell that costs 1, and one of the ways that, you know, red-green's excellent at playing 2 spells per turn for the beginning of the game, and the way you answer them is that if you can play 2 spells per turn also, you probably are just fine. Yeah. Tragic Slip costing 1, as long as he feels like he can turn it on, I think he'll keep it.
Okay.
I think those are about the only options. Again, Appetite for Brains, not at home here. Oblivion Ring is a bit slow for an answer. It's, you know, a 3-mana way to kill basically a 2-power creature. Not the best. And then Duress is a giant meh.
Yeah, so one thing I actually want to look at in this deck, Gravecrawler is obviously an engine of a lot of the zombie decks just because of the synergy it has with, you know, Blood Artist, Cartel Aristocrat. Do you still keep it in this matchup, though?
I don't like it at all.
Okay.
I think that Keathley is a defensive deck in this matchup. I think that his cards lend himself to play defense a little more than your typical Zombies deck that we saw last year does. As a result, Gravecrawler is probably at its worst here. I don't love some of the other things like Sorin Lord of Innistrad, but I think Gravecrawler goes first before that one.
Right, I think you brought all your Gravecrawlers. Diregraph Ghoul is still fine. It's annoying he comes into play tapped, but, you know, he'll trade with something, and that's really what you want your 1-drop to do. Yeah. You know, it's kind of like a delayed kill spell.
Mm-hmm. And once you're turning, like, you know, you can make the same argument for Drawless Messenger too, where, you know, it's a 3-mana spell that comes into play tap. But once you're turning the corner and trying to race your opponent, Drawless Messenger is very valuable then.
Yeah, I would say Drawless Messenger is not particularly good in this matchup. I'm not sure it's so bad that I want to side it out. It's still just, the card is so immensely powerful that it's a hard argument to side it out in any matchup.
It's also very interesting too because Drawless Messenger is much better on the play than it is on the draw. Right now, Keathley just did win that last game on the draw. He's going to be on the draw this game. You know, if you're on the play with a Zombies deck, there's no world where you're sideboarding out Messenger. But when you're on the draw against a mono red deck, arguments can be made for sideboarding.
Right, so if you're on the draw, it's not going to be untapped until turn 4. Mm-hmm. You know, your opponent's, like Thos's turn 4 attack, like, it won't be able to block until Thos's 5th turn.
Yeah.
Which the question is, like, is the game still even going on at that point? You know, if it is going on at that point, haven't you there's a very good chance that you've already won the game.
Yeah, it feels like you've accomplished your goal if the game is going on at that point. So we see both players, you know, sideboarding diligently. You know, there are definitely some decisions to be made here. Of course, it's easy to figure out what cards you want to sideboard in. The question, of course, is what cards do you want to sideboard out?
Yeah, so look, when you go to Thos's deck, you know, I think the Archwing Dragon comes out, but I'm not sure what, you know, he obviously likes the card. I mean, I'm seeing it comes out because I'm not sure it even has a home in this deck, but if you do like the card, I think it still comes out because your opponent plays Lingering Souls. It's probably something that's good against, say, Junk, which has very few answers to a 4/4 flyer. Other things that might come out in this matchup, I don't know, there's, like, a lot of his cards are pretty well situated. I'm not sure how much I like Searing Spear in the matchup. That card's just okay. A lot of Zach's answers, you know, Cartel Aristocrat probably won't get Searing Speared. Lingering Souls, it's really bad against. I think I may just want more creatures. It
just feels like a glorified Lava Spike in this matchup, honestly.
Right.
And no one's in search of Lava Spikes in constructed Magic for the most part.
Well, I mean, you can play a Lava Spike, but you'd probably rather have a creature.
Yeah.
You know, the reason Lava Spike's so good in Legacy is because your entire deck is Lava Spike, and at that point, Lava Spike actually becomes really scary.
Yes.
But, you know, you don't want to have 4 Lava Spike or 8 Lava Spike in a deck.
Yeah.
You'd rather, you know, once you get to 20, that's about the magic number where they start becoming really good.
Yes, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. So we'll see how this is going to play out. Again, I do think, that the red-green aggro deck is probably favored here, especially when it's on the play versus when it's on the draw, as Zombies historically plays defense quite poorly. The black-white Zombies deck does play defense a little bit better than your traditional black-red Zombies deck, but again, a deck that has Burning Tree Emissary is capable of some draws that are just nigh unbeatable.
So when we look at Zach's deck, what are the ways that he can, I think it's really important how he can interact turns 1 and 2. And as we saw that last game, he had Gravecrawler into Cartel Aristocrat, which turned out to be a pretty good way to interact. What are his other options on the first 2 turns?
Well, Diagraph Ghoul is going to come into play tap, but it can't block on the second turn. We're taking a look at Blood Artist here, which, you know, it's going to come down on turn 2 and it doesn't get to block, but the incremental advantage that it creates over the course of a game, you know, is invaluable.
Yeah, it can work hard enough to be worth a card, and you can cast it on turn 2.
Cartel Aristocrat, as you said, and we saw that the last game, can come down on turn 2, probably his best turn 2 play, honestly. Orzhov Charm is a removal spell that you do have to pay the price for, but things worked out that last game, as we saw, when it took care of Stromkirk Noble. And then the Tragic Slips that I think he's going to sideboard in, along with the High Priest of Penance and the Devour Flesh, lowering his curve, giving him some things to do on the other turns of the game.
Right, so both players kept a 7. Those had no turn 1 play, which we kind of talked about this in the top 8 of the last open, was, to me as a Zombies player, what it tells me is that there's going to be an Emissary coming down this next turn.
Yeah, you would believe that Burning Tree Emissary is going to show up to the party here, and a friend is going to be coming along as well. But he's just going to be passing the turn back, so it really makes you wonder what hand he kept.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that could be. He has drawn his sideboard Electrickery for the turn. Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of hands, obviously I don't play Red Green Aggro all that much, but I'm not sure what kind of hands without 1-drops or 2-drops you're actually supposed to be keeping. I mean, your whole deck is almost 1s and 2s.
Yeah.
So cards he could have would be Gore-Clan Rampager, Boros Reckoner, maybe some Pillars or Spears, Hellrider, and that's really about it.
I mean, this is just a lesson in basically role assessment, right? Where, you know, you have to know that you're the aggressor here, and you need to keep aggressive hands, even if it makes it that you have to mulligan for them. As Thos at least does have a Boros Reckoner here to start.
It looks like he has multiple Boros Reckoners by the look of his hand, which, you know, the card is very powerful. I don't think it's the card in this matchup, though.
No, I think that Boros Reckoner is great, of course, against your red-based strategies that use red removal, typically burn spells, to be able to clear things out of the way. But as we might see in Orzhov Charm here, it's bad against black removal decks.
Right, it's excellent because when he's in the mirror, you know, they have to just Searing Spear the guy and 2-for-1 themselves. But yeah, Zach actually has gotten to be the aggressor in this matchup, which as the Zombies player has to just be thrilled about.
Yeah, when you're on the draw and you get to turn things around on your opponent and be the aggressor, you're absolutely stoked to be in the position you're in, because then you can use a removal spell, like an Orzhov Charm, to just keep pushing damage through, and that's all that you want to be able to do as a Zombies player.
So Thos has drawn a 4th land. He still has more Reckoners. I believe he also has a Flinthoof Boar in hand. So the question is, like, if he has something like a Hellrider, he's probably deciding whether or not to play the Reckoner, it's the best 3, or whether to play a 4 in the hope of going 3-2 next turn.
Yeah.
Either way, this is a slower game. It's a slower paced game than Red Green typically wants to play.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a little bit surprising to see that happen.
Well, I think it's a little bit of a trap. So when you say Boros Reckoner is obviously one of the most powerful cards in Standard right now. So when you see a hand with multiple Reckoners and the lands to cast it, you'd think, this is a great hand. This is something I'd want to keep, and a lot of decks do keep it. The danger is, because you have no follow-up, remember that Zach's deck has cards like Obsidat or like, you know, Sorin, which are actually more powerful than Boros Reckoner, and you're giving him time to cast those cards. And because of that, even though you have a lot of Reckoners, you're still disadvantaged in the matchup.
The other thing you have to keep in mind too is that your 1-drops get worse the longer the game goes. So, you know, if you were able to draw a Rakdos Cackler or Stromkirk Noble moving forward now, those cards, the impact that those cards have, it just goes, it become more minimal the more turns the game goes. You know, the reason those cards are in your deck is because you want to get off to a fast start, not to draw them on turn, you know, 5 to 8.
Right. 4th land for Zach Keathley is Vault of the Archangel, which is pretty important at this point.
Yeah. Not only does he get to keep pressing his advantage, depending on what his hand is, but Vault of the Archangel is a way to just really solidify his life total, clear some things out of the way. But it looks like Boros Reckoner has really put a cramp in his style here, as he hasn't Orzhov Charmed this and moved along yet. It doesn't mean he doesn't have one. He may begin giving the play some consideration.
Right, so I think we're seeing Zach transition his role a little bit. He got in early damage with the Diagraph Ghouls, putting Thos down to 14. The Boros Reckoner actually has proven to be an effective roadblock here, or maybe not.
Yeah.
It looks like he's willing to just throw away a Diagraph Ghoul.
Or two.
Yeah, I mean, unless he has a trick, I don't think you give the the Boros Reckoner first strike here. You actually just let it, you let it get hit, and then you kill everything.
Yeah. And now we're going to see Electrickery take down this Blood Artist, but this turns on the Morbid for Tragic Slip, so that may have been an error.
Right. I definitely agree. Yeah, and he's saying, okay, stop. Either way, I'm wondering what Zach's holding on to. I didn't like this attack.
I don't like this attack either, because I don't know what this attack would accomplish here. That's the big thing, is if Thos just says, all right, I'm not even going to Electrickery, I'm just going to block your Diregraph Ghoul.
Block a Diregraph Ghoul, send a 2 damage at Blood Artist, or at Diregraph Ghoul.
Okay. And now the Morbid is turned on from the Tragic Slip, so now the Diregraph Ghouls can attack with impunity, get in 4 points of damage, so overall that's a fantastic turn for Keathley, as the Reckoner that was going to be problematic is now out of the way.
Yeah, I think that turn worked out a lot better than it should have worked out for him.
I agree.
And we see Thos still unable to keep a creature on the board, as Zach has a kill spell at every turn. He does still have a Searing Spear in hand, and along with the Flinthoof Boar. But he drops to 9, and that Vault of the Archangel is going to make, as long as Zach can continue to draw creatures and not get trumped by Thos' creatures, the Vault of the Archangel should keep Zach's life total out of reach.
So let's see, what are we going to see on this turn? We're going to see a Flinthoof Boar, and it's going to be on defense this time.
Right, he's leaving up Searing Spear mana. Once again, he's forced into that defensive role, which is pretty rough because there are a lot of draws in Zach's deck that he just can't defend against.
Yep.
I think the first one that comes to mind is Obsidat.
Yeah. And so there's a 5th land. It's going to be a Gala Shrine. That's going to come into play on tap. Keathley's going to move down to 16.
There may be an Obsidat or something similar coming in.
I mean, it's that or a Vault of the Archangel's activation, it looks like to me.
Sure, so he's actually just willing to trade. Yeah, he's just going to trade creatures with Flinthoof Boar. That's pretty strong, too. Because of Vault's life gain, he can just play Shocklands untapped to get value.
You see him slide that over and say, here's my Vault of the Archangel's activation. My 2 Diregraph Ghouls will have Lifelink and Death Touch. And Searing Spear is going to take down one of these. And the blocked one will trade with the Flinthoof Boar.
All right, so Thos has taken care of Zach's board. But the life tools are really in the wrong spots for him.
Yeah. Keathley's now at 20, I believe. Or he should go up to 18.
18, because the one was killed before damage. And we see Gorklan Rampager drawn by Thos. Not a bad draw at this point in the game, actually. Unfortunately, because of Vault of the Archangel, it still trades with pretty much all of Zach's creatures.
I mean, if you're Thos right now, you need to get something huge on the board and try to press your advantage and hope that Keathley doesn't have too much left over in his hand.
I mean, there's a lot of cards you just can't beat right now. Even Lingering Souls is pretty unbeatable at this point.
Yeah.
Four little Nighthawk 1/1s are probably more than the aggro deck can deal with.
Pretty good Magic card. So now we're going to see 3 mana. I got a feeling. Okay, it's Dross Messenger. I thought you may have been from the future
From the future,
again.
once again. It's like, oh, it's going to be Lingering Souls, but no.
But it is going to be a Dross Messenger. That's going to come in. It's going to knock Thos down to 7. Follow-up here is a Blood Artist. And passing the turn back.
Right. And because of the life total being so high for Zach, he actually has a chance to just play out more threats and just take, it's very rare that on, a turn 6, you can just give red-green aggro a free attack on you, which is pretty much what he's doing here.
Yeah.
So the question is, how does Thos actually defend against this sort of attack? An Undying Gross Messenger with the Vault of the Archangel, that is going to just chew its way through Thos' creatures. And the answer is, I'm not entirely sure.
Me either.
Thos with 3 cards left in hand, I believe. And clearly does not like the position he's in.
It's just a difficult situation that he's in right now. he is considering his options. He knows that Messenger is probably going to come across next turn anyway, because there's no reason for it not to attack. If it dies, he gets a Blood Artist trigger, and it comes back as a 4/3. As you see a Flinthoof Boar here, you're going to see a Haste get activated, and see it. Okay, he's going to get super aggressive because he knows that he needs to try to turn this game around.
I like this line a lot. It's not. It likely doesn't win, but I think it's his best shot of winning.
Yeah. And at this point, he needs to give himself a shot to win the game. He's going to follow up with a Rakdos Cackler. We'll see if he's going to unleash it or not. And I think I even
unleash.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to block Geralf's Messenger.
Yeah. I'm not going to accomplish anything by doing that.
I mean, the question is, can you race, Geralf's Messenger, activate Vault?
Yeah.
And probably not, but there's a chance.
I mean, it's difficult, but again, if that's my opponent's turn for the next few turns, it's just like attack with Messenger, activate Vault, gain 3, deal you 3, put you to 4, put myself up to 14, and then I'm taking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the swing back. I'm going down to 6. Like, that's really not that bad.
Well, what you have to think, if you're Thos, is that you're probably dead in 2 attacks. Right, 7 life, and between the Blood Artist and Geralf's Messenger, it's really unlikely you can survive 2 attacks. So, okay, you have him at 11, and you have to have next attack be lethal, which it's probably not, but let's say you can, is there a draw which makes it lethal? Maybe a Hell Rider here, maybe your opponent attacks wrong, and you draw a Hell Rider, right? You want all the damage possible on that next attack so that if you top deck what you need to, you have a chance to win.
Sure. I'm 100% with you. I love the attack last turn because, you play to win, you play not to lose. You do not play not to lose.
Right. You try to think when you're down in these situations, you want to try to envision, okay, what actually has to happen for me to win this game? And you can even put in, my opponent has to do something really bad. And that's fine. As long as you're playing to something that you think could happen, that's what you want to be trying to do. And blocking wasn't playing toward any sort of reasonable win.
So now what's going to happen here is Rakdos Cackler jumps in front of Geralf's Messenger. You see a Vault of the Archangel activation. Blood Crypt's going to occur. So Thos is going to move down to 6. Keathley's going to move up to 15.
Right, and that extra point, even just the extra single point of life gain off the Cackler Blood Artist trigger, pretty relevant here. It just draws Keathley that much farther out of range.
So Fisher's going to untap. He's going to draw. Let's see if a Hell Rider came off the top right now. That would be 4. That would be 3. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
13 on the swing. And I think that's a Pillar of Flame?
It did look like it was a Pillar of Flame, which is not bad at all right now.
No, not at all.
That's Pillar of Flame would take care of that Messenger for good and leave. Yeah.
And he's pretty happy on that Pillar targeting Messenger. An interesting story about Pillar targeting Messenger for those of you who played Magic Online recently. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this.
I do.
Okay. There was a brief window in which Geralf's Messenger returned triumphantly to Moto, and why was that?
That was because Pillar of Flame did not exile things. So as a result, people played zombies where Pillar was getting a lot of play. And when someone would Pillar of Flame and Geralf's Messenger would say, "Hi, I'm a 4/3. What's going on?"
Right. And as I recall, so it was just for one tournament, but I believe of the top 4 decks, 3 of them were running a set of Geralf's Messengers just for one tournament.
That is correct. That is also awkward.
And that's like the only window in the last 6 months where we've seen Geralf's Messenger really be a prominent player in the metagame.
Yeah.
So suddenly the situation not unwinnable for Thos, and that, I think that attack really played into that. He drew a pretty good card for himself right there, and now he has a shot to win.
Yeah, and you have to, he's done a nice job of trying to, again, get himself in a position to actually win this game. And that's the important thing. Again, he could have, maybe played a Flinthoof Boar and, Geralf's a Gorkline Rampager and just played defense.
Blocked Geralf's Messenger, let it trade, come back 4-3.
Yeah.
And if that would have happened, Zach would have been at about 20 or something.
Yeah, and that's just not even, that's not a winning play. But Thos is currently making winning plays to try to get back in this game. Now he's at 6, but Keathley is at 8, and he has 7 power on the board, and he draws a burn spell or something.
Keathley checks for Lingering Souls. No, there's not a Lingering Souls there.
Yeah.
Interestingly, because Keathley's been activating the Vault of the Archangel, he actually had started this turn. He has 3 cards in his hand this turn. Presumably has some combination of kill spells or creatures. The question is, will it actually be enough to push in that final 6 damage?
Yeah, the big question, right, is does he have a Restoration even looming in his hand?
Right, that would be excellent for him.
Changes quite a few things, to say the least. But he is, I mean, this was a game that Keathley was very far ahead in. I feel like he's behind now.
Yep. It's close. And like I said, it depends on the Restoration Angel. It depends what those cards in Keathley's hand are. As long as they're kill spells, or Restoration Angel, I still think I like Keathley's side of the board, but it's certainly turned into a game.
Yeah.
No.
Again, this was a game where Fisher didn't play anything until turn 3.
Right. He did not have the aggressive start. Fortunately, he has not drawn too many 1-drops. You know, the danger of keeping that hand is, you know, right now he top decks Stromkirk Noble, or there's a lot of cards, you know, he really just doesn't want to see.
Yep.
Interestingly enough, the card I really do want to see right now is that one of Archwing Dragon.
Well, here's a Burning Emissary. I think you might get to see that.
Is that actually the? Oh my! All right.
All right.
And right on time. That's
yeah, he's gonna read it.
Excellent draw.
We're gonna bring it up for you. Archwing Dragon, the last card in Thos' hand. That's an insane draw right now.
I mean, if you're talking about what draws get you by Restoration Angel, well, here's one. It's pretty good too.
All right, well, Archwing Dragon, welcome to the party, my friend. So now we're seeing an attack here from Thos, most likely with all 3 of his creatures.
So here's the best part if he swings all 3 of the creatures and why Archwing Dragon is particularly good. So if it was any other, say it was a Hell Rider, and Zach has the Restoration Angel, Zach could put Angel on the Flinthoof Boar, Blood Artist could chump something, and he'd survive. But because it's an Archwing Dragon, Zach, even if he has the Restoration Angel, the Restoration Angel will have to die in combat. So they'll probably, because if he blocks the Flinthoof Boar, I mean, it'll be close, but like he will. I guess he can still survive it, but he'll be at a really, like, he'll be down to 1 life or something. If he blocks Flinthoof Boar with it, yeah, because Blood Artist would die, he would end up taking 7 trample, he'd gain a couple life, but he'd be surely within 1 attack of dead.
So you see Orzhov Charm. Now Blood Artist is going to have to jump in front of something. It's going to have to jump in front of a Flinthoof Boar.
Right, so he's on defense mode. It's unfortunate for him that he has to lose the Blood Artist, as that was one of his best ways of dealing the remaining 5 damage.
So Blood Artist is going to bite the dust. He's going to end up taking 4, but then gain a life.
So he goes to 2. Thos is at 4. Can he find the remaining damage? The thing is, the lifelink off Vault, not enough to actually save him on this attack.
Yep. Because if he blocks with the Diregraph Ghoul, let's say he blocks the Flinthoof Boar, activates the Vault, and goes up to 4, but then Rampager and Emissary will come through to deal those last points of damage. For some reason, to me, it feels like it's almost like Obzdad or bust right now.
Well, it's really hard for him to not take damage on the next turn because of the trample that Gorklan Rampager has. Not to mention, Thos gets a card off the top of his deck, and you know he kept in Pillars and Spears.
Yeah, and he's just going to concede the game.
And Keathley concedes it. That is, you know, don't count it over till it's over. I was surprised that Thos was able to pull back into that game.
Likewise, especially with not having a play until turn 3. But I mean, he fought back. He made some good attacks to get himself back into the game, and that's why we're moving on to a 3rd and final one. So, really well played game there.
Yeah. So when you look at that, is there some, you know, obviously I think Thos, while maybe having a keep that wasn't ideal, like correctly recovered from a situation and made the best of it and was able to pull out a win. Do you feel like there's a way that Keathley could have, you know, secured that victory?
It really depends on what the contents of his hand were. I'm trying to retrace the footsteps of that game in my mind, and I mean, truthfully, it did feel like it was winnable. And I'm just not sure what may have went wrong there.
Right. I don't know how early he started activating Vault, if he had any of those other creatures in his hand when he was doing it. It's possible he was supposed to play out all his creatures before he started vaulting, but on the other hand, he could have drawn the creatures. And in that case, he played it exactly how he was supposed to.
Yeah, ideally when you have Vault as one of your lands in play, you want to get everything into play, and then when you finally do draw a land that's not relevant, you don't have a spell to play, then you start vaulting, and that's how you use your mana. Basically, that's why people call those lands spell lands, because it's your spell for the turn.
Right. And it's you know, they're nice to play because they give you, especially in a really low curve deck, it gives you something to do with your mana. There's a lot of, you know, one of the theories in deck building is that you rarely want to end a turn without having all your lands tapped, or nearly all your lands tapped. Every time you're doing that is a missed opportunity.
Yeah. It's all about maximizing mana, especially when you're playing an aggressive deck. You want to maximize your mana as best you can.
Yeah, untapped lands are bad. It means that you're not doing as much as you could be doing.
Yep. So Keathley's going to take a look at his opening 7 as he's going to be on the play here for game number 3. against Thos Fisher with his red-green aggro deck.
It does not look like either player re-sideboarded in the matchup.
No, shuffled very, very quickly, actually.
And both players have kept. Is that an untapped Godless? Okay, I was going to say, is the Godless try and ship the turn?
I doubt that, but stranger things have happened. It's going to be a Gravecrawler.
All right, so the Gravecrawlers have actually stayed in this matchup.
And I actually kind of like Gravecrawler when you're on the plate, because I think you want to be the aggressor when you're on the plate with the Zombies deck against red.
Do you think it's reasonable for him to think that he can race red-green? His lands do more damage, and his creatures aren't as big. His creatures don't come out as fast, but you think he can race this deck?
I think it's worth a shot, yeah. I really do.
And that's his best shot in the matchup.
I don't know if it's his best shot. I think it's a strategy that he can employ to some success.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little hand dependent, but it is certainly one of the strategies he can do here. He has a second zombie to rebuy Gravecrawler, meaning it basically, because all of Thos' creatures are 2/2s with the exception of Reckoner, that basically means that Gravecrawler just won't be blocked.
Yeah.
And I wonder if he has the Tragic Slip here. No, he does not.
He does not. I was thinking the same thing. So Strongford Noble's going to get in for 1. Keathley's going to move down to 17. Noble's going to become a 2/2. And we'll see what the follow-up is here. Excuse me, for Fisher.
I believe from Keathley's hand he had the option of Cartel Aristocrat, so he was being mana inefficient. So the idea is he was either holding up a Tragic Slip or he wants that insurance zombie right away for Gravecrawler.
Sure. So Keathley's going to draw his card after Arachnos Cackler comes down and is unleashed. So
a pretty tame start, all things considered, from Thos.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably back to the red zone if you're Keathley, right? Get in there for 4. Unless, does he want to try to play defense with that Diregraph Ghoul against that Stromkirk Noble?
Yeah, if you have no answers to Stromkirk, you may want to try to make that trade. And Keathley's thinking about it. He's going to try to see if that trade can stick.
So for 2 with the Gravecrawler.
Interestingly enough, in a racing matchup like this, the fact that Keathley shocked himself for the first creature turns out to be pretty relevant.
I agree. We'll see what that Cavern's naming, if it's going to be Zombie for Draw's Messenger or not. It doesn't look like it's going to be.
Human, based on how he was thinking of tapping there. And leaving up the Cavern.
Passing the turn, though.
Okay, so he wanted to name it on Zombie. I think he thought about naming it on Human so he could leave up a Tragic Slip bluff. But, the jig's kind of already up. We already know he doesn't have a Tragic Slip. He didn't hit the Noble, so, let's maximize the Cavern, put it on what it's supposed to be on.
Yeah, I agree. So Fisher's going to untap. He's going to draw a card. So let's see what he can come up with on this turn.
Yeah. If you're Fisher, the question is, do you want, so Keathley is challenging you to a race here. He's putting you in the aggro spot, I guess, because he's not, Keathley's not racing too hard. So, you need to make the most of that aggro spot. He's able to put out 5 power in a turn, but has no safe attacks.
And this is a little bit surprising because you see Burning Emissary into Flint of 4 into pass the turn, so no attacks here.
Well, interestingly, if you attack both your 2/2s, then Cartel, they'll all trade, but that will take away the ability to rebuy Gravecrawler. I mean, are you possibly okay making that trade?
Sure. So now here's Draw's Messenger. That's going to come into play. Going to drain him and brain him.
Yeah, I almost wanted to try to trade with Cartel Aristocrat there. I mean, it probably would not have worked, is the thing. But now, now Cartel Aristocrat is actually just going to eat an attacker every turn.
Yeah. And now the red deck is the one, so Gravecrawler's going to come in here. I'm not quite sure what that accomplishes, yeah. I mean, even though it can't
smack into a Flint of 4.
Yeah, even though it can't block, the attack doesn't really do anything. I mean, yes,
he's tapped out. There's no bluff going on.
Yeah, if he has a swamp post-combat,
Tragic Slip.
Yeah, if he has a swamp post-combat and it's just free to get it back, I think it's okay. But yeah, not.
I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, he just threw away his guy there. I don't like that play at all.
I mean, if you did that pre-combat, I think Thos will still block, but I think it's permissible.
It's a completely different story,
right?
Yeah,
then Thos has to think, why is he doing this? But if you tap out first, there's not a bluff.
Yeah.
You're just throwing away a guy.
Thos is working with nearly perfect information, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? He plays a swamp he plays a black source post combat and brings back his Gravecrawler, or he tries to slip my guy. Both those things are probably a-okay.
Like, Swamp Post Combat, bring back my guy. I guess I'm okay with Keathley if you're just, sometimes you can do if it's actually 0 investment, you can do the world's worst bluff of like, don't block it, and then he blocks it, and like, okay, rebuy it, whatever.
Yeah, no,
that's I guess fine.
Even worse now, like, to an extent, is that now he doesn't have a Gravecrawler to sacrifice to a Cartel Aristocrat. Yeah, he does have the Messenger out there he can sacrifice to make it a 4/3 and drain for 2 life.
But maybe, what if he sacrifices it, and with the Undying trigger on the stack, and the Cartel Aristocrat trigger on the stack, so Searing Spears the Aristocrat. That could happen, and now he doesn't have a Gravecrawler to sack in that situation. Corner case, sure, but you could have had it for free.
So we're going to see the sacrificing here, and okay, so that's going to come back, so it's going to resolve, it looks like. So it may have dodged a bullet there, did Keathley.
Right, there was no Searing Spear, so he's still going to get to, for free eat the Keathley. So it's interesting, what changed here? If you're Thos, no, sorry, that makes sense. So Thos didn't make this trade last turn of the exact trade we just saw here, presumably because it didn't push any damage, at least this time, because he had more attackers than Keathley had blockers.
Yeah.
This attack pushed 5 damage in.
Yeah, which I like. So let's see if Thos has a follow-up here or not. And he's just going to pass the turn back. So Heath's going to get to draw a card. It's an Orzhov Guildgate. We'll see what the follow-up is going to be this turn. Does not have access to Restoration Angel at this point. I think that would be kind of the backbreaker in this game if he was able to find.
He's able to Angel the Geralf's Messenger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully he has mana available. Ooh, and this is a pretty big mistake. He decided to attack before returning his Gravecrawler, and now that the Searing Spear came on Geralf's Messenger in combat, Keathley can't return his Gravecrawler to play. Unless he has another zombie
here.
Which he does.
Which he does.
All right. Stand corrected. Interesting enough, he can use his Cavern to do this instead of using the land, because Cavern's set on zombie.
Yeah, now he can't represent anything. He can't represent a Tragic Slip or some other white or black spell to try to trick his opponent.
Yeah, to be fair, it would have to have been a top deck Tragic Slip, because he's had numerous chances to play an amazing Tragic Slip this game, which he hasn't done at any point. Mm-hmm. But now this is just telling your opponent, I didn't draw Tragic Slip, which you don't want to tell him that unless you have to.
So now Fisher has the opportunity to work with actual perfect information on what kind of attacks he can make.
Zach's essentially tapped out.
Yeah.
Thos, though, still hasn't hit his 3rd land, and there we go with it. And we have the Minotaur Wizard of Boros Reckoner almost certainly to hit the table.
But he's going to Sun in first.
Yeah, it's a little aggressively swinging the Burning Tree here, right?
Yeah, I feel like the attack with the Flint of Boar is okay, because then it makes him just sacrifice his Gravecrawler, which is...
Then it can't attack you.
Yeah, it's a minor thing, but it can't attack you. Whereas now...
You're actually throwing away the Burning Tree Emissary.
Yeah.
For 3... I guess you're throwing away the Burning Tree Emissary for 3 damage, and if you think that the 3 damage the Burning Tree Emissary does now is better than... If you think that's best case scenario, that the Emissary deals 3, then, you're stacking it to Lava Spike your opponent, right?
Yeah,
There's a chance that you actually might think that's the right thing to do with it.
Yeah, which could be certainly okay. But Emissary is going to bite the dust. Boar's going to come through. Keathley's going to move down to 9. And let's see if there is a Boros Reckoner coming. And there is.
And that'll take away the most of Keathley's good attacks. So what I found interesting in this matchup is actually, originally I thought it was going to be red-green aggro is just really fast and black-white zombies can't block it. And that has not been how these matches have played out. It's actually been that Keathley has stopped the initial onslaught, or as was in game 2, Thos didn't really have a fast start.
Yep.
But Keathley's has been unable to close out games.
Yeah, which is a little bit surprising to me. Obsidat has not shown up at all.
Keathley's not much better at blocking than the red deck.
Yeah. So Keathley's looking at it looks like 2 or 3 cards in his hand. I'm trying to figure out what he can do here.
I think this is one of those matchups where whoever stops attacking first probably loses.
I've seen those before.
Yeah. They're very exciting.
Yeah, I've been a part of those before. The Zombies Mirror, the Blackbird Zombies Mirror back in the day, the first person to stop attacking did lose. It took me a while to figure that out, but every time I stopped attacking, I was like, why am I dead again? This is stupid.
And sometimes you didn't have a choice in the matter. You're just like, oh, I can't attack because there are no good attacks. That means I've lost.
Yes.
But And this is pretty similar. You know, Keathley has some ways to play defense, but none of them are any good.
Yep. And the same can be said for Fisher outside of that Boros Reckoner, as he's going to pass the turn back now and doesn't even get back to Gravecrawler. So if he's not returning the Gravecrawler, this almost certainly should be Restoration Angel. Or some number of removal spells, what have you.
And Thos has not seen a Restoration Angel yet, so
he did see one game 1.
He saw one game 1.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you have to have the read on Restoration Angel there, right? Which maybe Thos is just, he's fine trading the Reckoner with the Angel. So to be fair, I don't really want to make that trade if I'm Thos. The Reckoner is so good right here.
And maybe he just goes upstairs with the Reckoner and just says, all right, fine, take 3, and they can finish him off. Or, you know, the Gore Clan Rampager is also at the ready here too.
Okay, and does he have it in his hand?
That we don't know.
Okay,
He's done a nice
that
job
would be
concealing
excellent.
it. Yeah. But it feels like he has something here.
Yeah, if you have Gore Clan Rampager, then this is absolutely the attack, and he does. All right. So one step back. He's going to go with the... he's Gore Clanning the Flint of 4, so it's going to trample over for 4, plus the 3 damage from Reckoner will put Keathley down to 2. Yeah. Which, I guess if his last card's a pillar, that's a pretty good attack.
Yeah, and assuming the Reckoner's going upstairs, yeah, and looks like he's putting that upstairs too.
Right. It smells like his last card's a Pillar of Flame.
Yeah. Seems like one of those cards in that hand's probably that. Yeah, because he's choosing not to kill Restoration Angel. That's 2 mana.
And there we go, Pillar of Flame.
That's a Pillar of Flame.
So Thos Fisher pulls back in from an unlikely game 2 to defeat Zach Keathley 2 games to 1.
Red Green Aggro is going to take down Black White Zombies. As we're going to cut it back here to the booth for you guys. Matthias Hunt, Cedric Phillips here, and Star City Games Open Series, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas.